Welcome today for our webinar. It's exciting to have David Boyds with us from today's class. Some of the things that we talk a lot about at the Institute comes down to the teaching and the training and development of staff. And when we think about what we're doing and as we work with different clients, we're dealing with it and we talk one-on-one or do other different events, and we're doing those on a weekly and monthly basis. But the beauty of some of the things that we have here to talk about today, that we're going to have David share here more in a few minutes, really goes into that daily constant feeding, developing of people and that focus. So today we want to get into and share a little bit more of the benefits and how to reinforce those different messages and those different things. It's a privilege that at the Institute we have this opportunity to have a very strong partnership and alliance with today's class. Some of the content that we've developed and that we're doing, we're sharing with today's class, and David will talk a little bit more, where we're able to take that content and he's been able to develop it and put it into that little bite-sized 2, 3, 4-minute daily things. And it could be on Advisor, how to develop your phone skills, things that you can do better. That reinforces not only what we're teaching, but to make those people better on a daily basis and how it comes together. So with that, David, thank you for coming with us today and sharing some things. If you would, share a little bit about today's class, talk a little bit more as to what the content is, how you get it out there, develop, and the importance and what people can expect.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy to be here. So today's class has been around for a long time, but what we've really focused on for the past few years is to make training as accessible as possible in a shop environment. We know that it can be difficult to carve out 30 minutes of time, 3 hours of time, carving out time in an evening. So we're coming at it a little different way, primarily through using mobile apps to push training that takes 3 to 5 minutes typically for each user. It's engaging, it's gamified, but maybe most importantly, it's personalized. So if we have, for example, an ATEC, their training is going to be different than a GST or an advisor. Our background was more on the technical side of things. We've been an ASE accredited training provider for a number of years. So we really grew up in that space providing technical training that could support a shop. This collaboration with the Institute is exciting because now we're able to leverage their expertise and really take it to a whole new level. We know that a service advisor, for example, we can help them better understand technical concepts. However, the Institute can take us to a whole nother level when it comes to things like phone skills, communication, even things like accountability. So we're really excited to move forward here.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about gamification. And I know when this goes many, many months back, when we started working together on different things, we here at the Institute, there was a group of us, Cecil being one, that was part of it. So we're going on, and be it on technical, advisor, whatever it is, we're going on and we're doing exactly what your clients were doing. And it got to be very competitive inside our walls because I'm doing the daily test and it's the same one that Cecil's doing. And now we're competing to see who's got them all right. Am I getting more points? Am I ahead of Cecil or is he ahead of me? So that competition is really interesting because I know what it does to us. You're seeing that probably also with your clients because most of the people who do sign up for today's class, it's that rooftop or that shop with multiple people engaged. How well is it moving the needle when they get into the gamification or the competition? Because guys got egos.
Absolutely. So the reason that we include that gamification in there is because we need to promote that daily habit. So this gets into some adult learning capabilities and motivations and so forth, but those points in the competition are a common hook. So people can earn points through being consistent with their daily training, but there's a variety of ways to leverage that. The most common thing that people will do is just treat it like a scoreboard. So if Wayne and I are on the same team, we can see who's leading the pack so far. It resets each month. Teams can then compete against one another. So when we have various MSOs, or if you're in a group, you can compete with your peers, and that can just open up the doors to drive people to move forward. It's not something where they have to overcommit to it, but it's a very light-spirited way to keep it going. And the fun thing for us has been that seeing how shops come up with their own creative ways to leverage points, whether it's primarily about competition, whether it's weaving it into pay structures, incentives, tool bonuses, or ultimately creating your own reward store where you can take points and redeem them for gift cards, tools, trips, or time off. So really what we're trying to do is use the points as a way to create that engagement tool for a management team to be able to ensure their team can train consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about all that content that's out there. And it's like anything with learning. I mean, you got to keep it fresh. And the more we can do to engage people on a daily, regular basis that keeps whatever the subject matter is of it's on the track, training track that they're on, I can only imagine keeping it top of mind has made a difference. And when you talk to shop owners, they've engaged into your services, they got their staff using it. What kind of testimonials, what kind of results are they seeing that trickle into obviously better work's going out the door, they're having less comebacks, people are being more efficient, they're seeing that proficiency in tech time, on and on and on. How does that trickle in, and what are some of the comments you get back?
Yeah, so I'd say that I could boil that down to a few common use cases. One, I think for service advisors on the technical side of things, we see a lot of benefit. Very common for us to hear about customers who have an advisor who's great at communicating, great with people, but just lacking some of that technical expertise. Today's class is a very easy way for them to begin to beef up on some of that technical knowledge, terminology that improves their ability to not only communicate with the customer, but also with the technicians in the back. So we get a lot of great feedback on that in terms of getting them up to speed, very quickly, but also in a way that's non-threatening. They can do this on their own. They can do additional self-study. So we get a lot of good feedback from an ROI perspective on service advisors. When we talk about advanced level technicians, a lot of this gets into how things have changed. We talk about daily re-engagement, reinforcement. This is not a static industry. Things are moving all the time. So as we keep our content up to date and fresh, as a very experienced technician, you might see something you didn't know or something that has changed since you last learned it. So staying in front of it tends to be pretty key. And then from a measurable perspective, another area that we often see relates to ASE certifications. And a lot of that comes to prep and making sure that people are confident to go into these certifications through the way that we deliver training, the way that we measure where folks are. We've got great reports on building individual folks' confidence so they head into those certifications knowing that they're going to pass it.
So, and on a reporting side, you're getting a lot of the information. Obviously, you're seeing how people are, when they engage, what they're engaging in, how they're scoring or testing. So if they're showing, because at the end, as they go through it, the test is going to tell you if you got competency of subject matter. So at the end, as you report all this, it's obviously going back to the shop owner. And they're being able to see where there's gaps or weakness. How are they using that then as part of that overall development and learning as they continue to build it out?
Yeah, so measurement is key for everything we do. We have tons of data, and we have a variety of shops that are data junkies and other folks that want more of the headline data. What we tend to advise is to look at that data to inform some of the additional training you may need. The today's class experience is something that you can do in 3 to 5 minutes a day, but we recognize that technicians and advisors are going to need more. Where this can help is the data can begin to inform that perhaps these two technicians over here really need some additional help, in AC services or electrical. And now instead of sending your whole shop to an evening class, for example, let's send these two folks that really need help. So having line of sight to what they actually know, what they actually are confident in, can help a business operator make more informed decisions.
And I know part of this, besides just that daily interactive, you also are doing some other things where you're doing online training, where you just recently did one on air conditioning and ended up doing it on live where you had 40 plus techs and others coming in that one of your instructors went through and took even that deeper dive to help them through this training or getting them to that certification. So it's not just the daily, it's also reinforcing it in a different way. As you're looking at everything that's going on, and we've talked a little bit about this, everybody's talking about AI. And they're talking about how this is changing and embracing. And I know you're looking at it, we're looking at it, and how can we use it as a tool to reinforce and to help fine tune that messaging. Tell me a little bit. I know you've got some things in the works, nothing ready to announce, but tell me how you guys are looking at this because it is changing our industry.
Yeah, no, I mean, we need to use it as an enabler. So it allows us to evaluate content, be more consistent, with the volume of training that we push out each day and the data that we're crunching, it allows us to identify trends. So when we talk about this AC session that we did the other day, the benefit that we get as thousands of users are training in the platform each day, we can get insights that say people are struggling with this or people misunderstand this, or maybe we need to enhance this particular content area. And the AI can help us crunch through that data more effectively. So it really just becomes something that allows us to do our job more effectively, scale across broader data sets, more quickly.
Yeah. What's one of the biggest challenges that you guys face right now when it comes to the training and development of, what do you hear? What's some of the feedback that people are looking for that we're trying to continue to, as we do at the Institute, what's the gap and how are we going to start to develop and close that gap?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it's a bit of a balancing act because we know that the fundamentals are key. A lot of times people are looking for what's next and we have to balance that to keep them looking ahead, but also recognize, are they doing those services right now in the shop? We've got limited resources for development. We have to have that balancing act. So we use those data insights, industry insights, and feedback from customers to say, here's how we can prioritize our development roadmap.
Are you finding the need to become very manufacturer or model specific or anything like that? Or is it still staying pretty universal?
It's pretty universal at this point, because again, there's such deep rabbit holes you can get into once you go into that make and model specific. So at this point, we haven't gone down that road. And we'll continue to explore it, but at this point, we still have a lot of work that remains to be done, kind of more from the broad level.
So part of our partnership or alliance is you've been working hard because you had a lot of great things, and obviously you've moved the needle. You've got about 11,000 users roughly on the system, which is a big number, and it was very technical specific. And now we're starting to get into more of those soft skills. And we've been honored to be able to help with some of that content and information that will help with that service advisor, telephone skills. What other things, when you talk about soft skills, are we working on or you want to work on to develop?
Yeah, so leadership, accountability, and shop operations more broadly. We want to be careful to not be very narrow, let's say with a particular focus on brakes or engine performance. But we want to ensure that teams can work together effectively. Communication, handoffs, documentation, to make sure that all of that pieces together. We want to enable broader shop operations. We know we can reinforce that, get that message out daily. We're even seeing with some specific customers that they're building out best practices in terms of the way they run their SOPs, the way they run their point of sale systems, where they can dish that out to their teams and enforce those behaviors daily.
Yeah, we're seeing this more and more. I mean, we've been to different industry events at the Institute. We've had this opportunity to interact, present on different things. And why there's a lot of good things going on the technical side, those soft skills, very much in demand. How to build good culture and how to be a good leader, not just be a good manager, but a good leader that inspires and gets people to rise up as we want them to do. So it's something that we're excited to be able to help develop some other content that can be used, that can be put into those bite sizes, just good action items, and a reminder of, here's something I can do today that can make a difference in my business, to be a better leader, to be a better manager, to operationally, how to get into. So I know we at the Institute, we spend a lot of time, we've got our own dashboard, we've got all these operational KPIs, but how do you then take all this good data and implement it into daily operations? So it's going to be interesting. I know we got a lot of work in front of us to get it where it needs to be, but it's going to be fun to build it and try to make this difference. I also find it interesting, and you've talked a lot about it in the past when we've talked. Talk a little bit of how it's different. Adult learning has changed, and it's going to continue to evolve. the young people coming up, the millennials, whatever, their attention span and how they look at things and how they consume is different than me as a baby boomer. What are some of the things and the trends you're seeing, and how are you trying to adapt to, if you could?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it starts with recognizing that there's different ways to learn. I think there's a tendency to learn the way that we all did, let's say in high school, for example. We got to be very careful when it comes to a one size fits all approach, and also for longer bursts of time. There's just a lot of research that indicates that there's only so much information an individual can absorb and retain over time. And then everybody's probably familiar with the idea of the forgetting curve, that we're going to get rusty on things over time. So we're trying to just recognize those behavioral tendencies. Some folks might roll in attention span to that as well, which can be part of it. So we're trying to be very targeted, hit you where you need it, hit you with what's relevant, and ideally motivate you to dive deeper. Motivation is a key aspect to it. When you think about somebody on your staff that it has to do required training, the common behavior is they'll work through it, try to get to that finish line and say, I'm done. However, if you can flip that around and find a topic or an area that an individual is very motivated and interested to go through, I mean, obviously they'll enjoy that more, but there's a lot of research that suggests that the retention there is much stronger. So with a lot of our strategies, we're trying to build it in that way where people can, do what they need to do, but then ideally, push deeper into areas that they're very excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick on myself, and being someone who was in college in the 70s and being in my later 60s now, I'm still old school. I mean, I still got to have stuff on paper. I want to be able to tactically touch it, read it, and work through. I look at my kids and grandkids, man, they're in the digital space. And I know it's really hard at times when you sit there and you try to feed this content and how it's going to stick for this person to this person to this person. And yeah, this industry's changing a lot. But when I look at myself and I look at a lot of owners that are out there who are in their, later 50s and beyond, yeah, some of us are still pretty old school.
Well, and building on that, I think some of the trick in terms of what we try to do, when you think about having an individual, let's say, take a course on brakes or AC, your sense of where they might need help is kind of attached to that broad topic. When we break it down to these smaller pieces, we can tell you exactly where somebody's struggling, exactly where they need help. And maybe we can take them from being 90% effective to 95 to 100, so we can still make meaningful gains even with those small pieces.
Yeah, and I get your daily feeds, because I've got the app on my phone. I'll be honest, I don't do it every day. There was a stretch there that we were competing more internally, but it is nice, and we all work with a smart device of some kind, be it a tablet, be it your phone, whatever. So it makes sense, but at the same time, I know how it affects me and how I still learn and consume that kind of educational material. And yeah, still this day, I still can't get out of the habit of not printing. But I'm not the future, as they say. I'm still the present, working. And I look at the generations coming up, and I just wonder, there's been a lot of statistics out of that attention span, how you teach, how you develop, and how they become good with their hands and do. And yeah, it's getting harder and harder, needless to say.
Yeah, and I think constraints are a big piece of it too, because people may have a preference for those deeper dives. They may have a preference for hands-on. But I think that the reality is carving out the time or getting to the location you need to, that's not always easy. We have a lot of customers that are in very rural locations because they may not have a lot of options. So you can do this on your phone. It's short, it's accessible. You can dig deeper if you want. But a lot of these folks may not have the time or availability to dig deeper. So, and again, as I said earlier, we don't view this as the only solution that folks can leverage. I think this fits that gap where you can build from other things and tie it all together.
Yeah, I got to compliment you. As I've looked at some of the technical training, it's very detailed. Now it is in those snippets, so you're not going to just get on for 5 days and go through brakes as an example, or air conditioning, and at the end of that say, hey, I'm ready now to go take the ASC. I can be certified, whatever. But there's enough content in those lessons that you look at, and it's in the dozens. I mean, it's 20, 30. But if you get through the whole segment you've gained and consumed a ton of information that really will get you prepared. I compliment you and staff, and I've been very impressed with the details and the level that you can take people. So, I encourage everybody, take a look. There's so many ways to stay current. There's so many ways to learn and develop. And we've talked about that. Yeah, there's a lot of service centers that are an hour, 2 hours from a city where training is going to be happening. And now the expense of sending someone who's got to drive, maybe there's a hotel room. You go down the list, it adds up, and it gets really expensive fast for some of these different events. So
yeah, well, and that's where I think our data for our customers that do that, they're in a good position to make that call, because you're going to have to do that hands-on training. You're going to have to travel. But if you can do so by knowing that this employee is ready for this training, let's flip it around. Now, maybe I don't make that expense because I know you're already beyond it, and I can say, hey, we're not going to invest the time and the cost to do that. Let's wait for a session that's more appropriate for you.
Yeah, no, I hear you. What are some other areas that you're considering? I know we've talked about, besides the technical, we've already talked a little bit about some of the other different leadership, management, culture. Are you going to add in accounting, financial training?
Financials is an area that we're very interested in. I think for a lot of, the younger, technicians, for example, that are very interested maybe in opening their own shop someday, we would love to break into that and start delivering some of that foundational financial experience that everybody can benefit, whether you're going to open up a shop or you're going to go off and do something else. That personal finance can be key. And again, that's where we're really excited to work with you guys on that, leverage your expertise, because I think we would all agree that everybody in that shop, if they all have a good understanding of that, that's going to improve the communication, that's going to improve expectation setting and allow things to be smoother.
I know this is in my past life. Years ago, I worked for a company, manufacturing company, and I had a meeting with staff, and the title of the meeting was, "How do we make money?" And I can remember taking the time and breaking down, materials, labor, and all the things that it took, because it was a custom manufacturing company, and everything that it took, and showed them and staff, how do we make money? And I agree with you. I think when we start talking to coaching clients and others, the owner understands, but sometimes the service advisor, the tech, doesn't realize this lack of efficiency, or this happens or that happens, erodes or eats into the overall financial statement. The other thing, is we're seeing, and you read the statistics as I do, right now in this industry, they're saying between 50 to 60% in the next 10 to 15 years of service centers are going to change ownership. There's a lot of people, and we see them within our marketplace, who are in that age of 55 plus, who want to get out and want to do it. And we're already working with clients who are selling to a service advisor or a general manager or to a tech, but now they need to understand. So this is a great way, again, not having access to certain things to fill that gap. And it's a big gap that's coming.
Yeah. Well, I'll tie that back to the learning motivation. So imagine that you get exposed to a little bit of this and you're interested. Now I understand it's not such a mystery to me, and that might motivate you to learn more. Imagine if you're an owner having your experienced technician come up to you and start asking some of these questions about the finances of the business. That can be a very encouraging step in that development cycle.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's something that I know and I've done some coaching calls where the owner says, "Are you okay? Can we have one of the coaching calls? And I'm going to bring in my, service manager, general manager, one of my advisors. And would you talk to them about all these things that we're just talking about, operationally, financially?" They get it and they know it, but to be able to coach and teach and let it go out to them only moves the needle. And if they got focus on the dollars and everything that's going on, it trickles down. And now that shop's making more money. Now they have the money to buy that extra specialty tool, or to get the new alignment rack, or to give out bigger bonuses or incentive plans for the techs, to the service advisors, to everybody else. So everybody wins. Training is just so critical. So critical. And we just have to constantly do and build. And I always tell our coaching clients, we talk about when we go to events, if you don't invest in your biggest asset, which is your people, they're going to find someone who will invest in them. And that's not maybe going to be at your shop. So I just feel like you can't stress training enough. And you've got to invest and you got to help these people. And when you do it and it makes them better, makes you better as a shop, and they know that you really do care for them, which builds culture.
Yep.
All the things we talk about. So as you look to the future, do you see anything out there that is going to be a big change, big movement, any concerns, or is just keeping an eye on the prize, as they say, keeping the eye on what we need to do?
I mean, we got to keep our eye on the ball, but again, I think there's a lot of enhancements from a content, but also a data perspective. We will ultimately want to move into a more dynamic training model. Right now, our customers will select the type of training that they want. It's menu driven, but whether I'm ATAC or I want somebody to focus on brakes, as we begin to get more sophisticated with data, we can look at business ops and begin to shift that dynamically and start pushing training automatically to somebody based on what they need. Now, again, they can always seek out more information, but the more that we can do on behalf of the shop, the better off we think that they are. They can certainly, take the wheel and steer it, but they have a lot going on. And if we can use our expertise and their data to inform that, we think that's effective.
Yeah, I mean, we look at shop management software, obviously. We have different things we have within our own dashboard that allows us to pick up so many different data points. And all of this trickles back down to, okay, we got all this great data, but if I can't take that data and put it in a form that gives me insight or knowledge, which allows me to make better decisions, which I like what we said earlier, is that, as a shop owner, I can see all this thing on your dashboard. I can see who's going in on a regular basis. I can see how they're doing on the testing. I can see if they need more training. I mean, these are so important data points, no different than, am I getting the right gross profit on my parts? Am I getting the right gross profit on labor that gives me the overall gross profit on my business? But if we don't take all that data and use it to have better insight and knowledge to make better decisions, then it's just bits and bytes and it's just data.
Yeah, we got to be very careful with that. We'll hear that constructive criticism from our customers that these dashboards are great, but there's a lot. How do I make sense of that? And I don't disagree. And that's going to be some of the excitement going forward, because we're going to continue to refine this and make it more actionable, a little more clear. You mentioned just some of the financial stats. I mean, if we think about the number of metrics the typical shop owner's got to manage, it's not a short list.
No.
So we can do our part to try to tighten that up and connect it to those metrics, because ultimately we want those training dollars to be, or those training metrics to be informing those dollars and so forth. So the better we can tighten that up, it makes it simpler from a reporting perspective and more effective overall.
Yeah, we whenever we get a new coaching client, we start the whole conversation of, let's get a status of your business. Let's look at the health. Let's start looking at some of those data points. Then it starts, okay, where do you need to train? Where do you need to develop, new skills or new opportunities? But at the end of the day, I mean, it starts, nothing happens until the phone rings.
Right.
Nothing happens until a customer drives into your lot and walks in the door. So, we can do all that, but once that starts, that gets the opportunity to sell them. But what brings them back is the quality of the experience with the service advisor, to the quality of the work the tech did, and that it's of what it needs to be, that when the customer drives away, they have a happy experience. All that comes, and we keep reinforcing it, but it all comes through training and reinforcing. So, one of the things that, we talk about from a culture standpoint, what gets rewarded gets reinforced. And sometimes we reinforce and reward the wrong thing too. So this is an opportunity when we have the right metrics, get the right KPIs, we get the right training going, we keep it and sustain it. Now it reinforces all the right things you want to do, so that customer experience is at a high level. The retention stays up. So when that phone rings and they come in and you get a new customer, you keep the new customer. And then you just build on that energy. And we're seeing a lot of that. And I go back to the beginning. I mean, this is what's exciting of being able to work together, and what we're seeing that it does to reinforce what we coach and train and speak about. So yeah, it's going to be fun to continue to help with content, new things, new stuff that we can get it to that next level to truly make this, as we say, a better industry.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want.
Yeah.
Everybody wins.
Yeah, we're big believers, and two heads are better than one. So it's been exciting, to work with you guys. And again, we're very excited to work with experts and bring in different perspectives, because I think broadly what we've done is confirm that this learning model and this access works. And it's talking to thousands of shops. We know there continues to be opportunity where they need information. There are access limitations. So if we can get the right content piped through to those folks, the better they'll be overall.
Yeah, I agree 110%. It's just, there's so many shops out there, and there's only enough hours in a day.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we continually try to help and make a difference? I say, and I've been around it for a lot of years, but this is a great industry. It's exciting. And I think we need to continue to do a better job as an industry to entice and bring in the young people. Sometimes we still have the phobia of what it was 20 and 30 years ago. It's dirty, it's greasy, it's this. Cars aren't dirty and greasy like they used to be. Engines don't leak and do other things like they used to do. And the electronics and everything that's into it is making it a more exciting, interactive, and challenging activity. I mean, I think about my grandson who loves the video games and the computers and all the things. But then you sit there and you try to tell him all the other things you can do and what's in the automotive space. It is exciting. It is exciting what we're going to be able to do. I don't have the right answer, but it's the only way we can do is continue talking about it as an industry, continue to encourage, continue to engage. But once we get them in, what are we going to do to take them to the next level? What are we going to do to continue to start? Because I hear too many stories, especially at the dealership level. The kid comes out, maybe you went to the community college, they're not through all the programs they could get to, but they end up being a lube tech. And then the dealership keeps them held down. And they don't want to do this. They don't want to develop them. And they don't want to go in these other directions. So what does the guy do? He leaves. I can't make enough money. I can't support myself. So I'm going to find another one. And he goes to another industry. Might be welding. It might be, a machinist. It might be something else that can pay him that he's not getting because he's being held down. So I say this all the time. And as I look into the camera, guys, we as a whole, as a team, we have to improve ways of what we're doing to develop the young people of this day. It is so critical. And this training opportunities and the things that we're doing with today's class, and it's with others in the industry, it's just so critical if we want to retain the next generation and beyond. And it's gonna take time, and it's gonna be hard, but we gotta start someplace, and we've got to make those investments. And it's got to be frequent. I don't know about anybody else, but man, I've had the privilege in all my years of working. I've learned a lot, but if I don't go back and refresh, I forget it. I forget it. And the daily aspect of it is huge. It's huge. Just keep top of mind.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, challenging when you think about bringing in younger folks. I think we need to challenge some of the assumptions related to, is the way that we've done it the way it needs to be in the future? So we're trying to push a little bit in terms of this idea of daily engagement and the way people actually learn and what's effective. And these things will continue to evolve. The audience is changing. We need to look at them in a different way and what works. Whether it's, we hear a lot of it, tying back to what we talked earlier about with points and recognition and so forth. We hear from a lot of our customers when they use our metrics and engagement tools that money isn't the biggest motivator for a lot of their employees. It's the recognition, a lot of these other tools, and it's fun to see some of the ideas that they come up with. And we also notice that those incentives vary a bit from their younger crew to their more experienced crew as well.
It's been proven I go back to when I was in college and some of my classes, that was proven in statistics 40 some years ago, that money is not the ultimate motivator. It's job enrichment, fulfillment, and other things you do. And that is true. I mean, and this helps to fulfill some of those just inner needs psychologically that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, money's important. And we talk a lot about the Maslow hierarchy, and you get into that, basic needs. Everybody needs money to pay their rent, to, make their car payment, to have food and that. But once people start getting past the fundamental things, the base of Maslow, and you start to climb up, you're looking for other things. You're looking for that enrichment, that, fulfillment of, and what fills your soul, so to speak, that makes you want to go to that job every day and do what you do because you find the challenges of it. And that's something that's important as these young people start to grow and go through. I'm curious, have you guys have any connection, or are you going to work to get connection with maybe some of the trade schools and or community colleges with your content that helps their students and other things? Do you got anything like that?
We've tested it a bit. We're working with one school that we've been working with for years in Adrian, Michigan. And it works well. I think the trick that we sometimes find in particular schools is it is more of a one-size-fits-all approach. Those instructors do need to bring you into this subject area. You're going to have a quiz on Friday, and then we're going to move to the next one. So the individualized approach, they often like the idea of that IEP, that individualized program. However, it can be a distraction from what the instructor's routine is of doing. So it's been a bit of a mixed bag. So it hasn't been a focus for us. We used to work in that business and begin to shift back towards the aftermarket.
Got it. Yeah, I could see as we at the Institute have the privilege to engage with Weber right here in the community, which is one of the top automotive technology programs in the country. And in our meetings and being part of their advisory board and group, it is interesting. We sit there and we're looking at that and how to connect better. I mean, just as we said earlier, we've got to invest in the young people. We got to invest in this next generation. So we've been working harder to get connected with some of the schools and do more, do what we say, and what we preach, but to do more. But then you sit there and saying, okay, so how can we continue that so they can see that there is a very good career path of knowledge, teaching, training, development that takes them to the next level. But I could see maybe someday,
and we're not opposed to it, but yeah, it was
hard.
Interesting. We particularly for teenagers, there was this thought, okay, an app-based approach would be a home run. Right. And again, I think the students were interested, but it became, for an instructor, they've already got a full plate, and it became an extra piece that they had to manage. Yeah. But I do think that this, going to what we talked about earlier, imagine being a student and knowing that, hey, I could be taught not only about turning wrenches, I can be taught about sales, culture, leadership, financial. Yep. I can learn not just to do this job, but how to run an actual business when it comes to this.
Yeah, it's exciting to look because, again, we get many people who come into the Institute and I just ask them, I mean, how did you get to own this shop? Well, I was the top tech at that shop or another shop, and I decided instead of working for somebody else, I want to work for myself. Yeah. So they knew the technical side. They knew the business as to fixing cars and how to, read an RO, repair order, and how to get it done and fixed right and out the door and make the customer happy. What they didn't know is all those other skills that makes a difference if you're in business 5 years from now or you're not in business 5 years from now.
Lots of details, and whether it's the people, the financials, the legal. I mean, there's lots of layers to it where, who knows? I mean, I think there's an advantage as well. Maybe somebody gets exposed to some of those things and they say, that's not for me. I'm pretty comfortable with where I am right now. I'm going to focus on what I do well. I don't want to have to deal with, managing people or these pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's a lot when you talk to some of those, and I've always found it interesting, and it has nothing to do with age. I mean, we work with some young people. I mean, when I say young, they're in their 20s and 30s. To those who 45. I mean, I've got a coaching client that I'm working with here at the Institute. Mid 40s and bought his first shop. But he was the top tech and decided I want to do my own thing. Yeah. And now he's building. But all of a sudden he realized while he was doing okay, he wasn't making the money he should. He wasn't having all the success. And we started digging in and just, all that financials and just standard operating procedures and processes, the HR aspect of just managing and leading people. And it's a whole different skill set. Some people have it naturally, but most, myself included, I had to learn it and develop it over time.
It's not easy. The analogy that we'll often talk about is somebody that's a really good cook, or you're very passionate about that, but running a restaurant's a whole different animal. And I think that's one that people can relate to a bit, because we've all been there. We can understand what's going on in those kitchens, but there's a lot of layers to that. So, and I think there's a lot of value also to maybe being exposed to something and realizing that's not for me, and save yourself that trouble. There's a lot of benefits knowing where you don't belong. And if you can find that out before you commit to that step, that can be a benefit.
It was interesting. This goes back a little bit of a shop owner I knew. He sold his shop and he went back to being a tech because he decided, and that's okay. He said, I don't consider a failure or anything. I realized I was not a good business owner. We did okay, but I'm a better tech. So he went back to wrenching on cars every day. And I still talk to him for probably about 5-6 months, but he was happy and very content. So, sometimes it's not always for everybody, as they say, but it's a lot to think about as you look and how to develop that and how to get those skill sets to be that good, strong, dynamic runner or business owner. And it's got a lot of challenges that come into play that people just don't think about.
Yeah. Well, and promoting discussion among that, I think, is helpful as well. What we find in our experience is it's non-threatening. You can see this stuff through the app. You can get exposed to it. There's some hesitancy often to raise your hand in that class. Like, I don't understand what a P&L is. Help that make sense. So by making training available and accessible and pushing it to you, we think there's an advantage there. We're also enabling more communications through the platform as well. You mentioned the webinars that we were doing on AC this week. We've got some discussion feeds as well. But again, ideally, for a technician that's listening to this, if we can expose you to some additional knowledge on finance, culture, leadership, et cetera, get you thinking about it and maybe discussing it with one of your peers or encouraging you to go reach out and seek more help, we think that's a benefit.
Yeah. I always find it interesting when we get in conversations with our clients and just the industry in general, and I get people saying, well, why do I need training? I'm running a pretty good shop, or why should I get coaching, or why should I do this? Why should I do that? I always look at it, and I always look at what we see out here. And, if you watch golf on a Sunday and the Masters we just recently have, you look at professional sports. And I always find it interesting that you look at the top performers in many other things, they have coaching, they have training, just using golf as an example. They've got a putting coach, they got a swing coach, they got, someone for this, they got so many people that are helping them get to the very top. And when you think about what they do to excel and stay at the top and what it takes, I always wonder, why don't we do that enough in business in general? And I look at myself when I got out of college many years ago, but I was blessed to have some really good people in my life who were strong mentors. I took advantage of different certification programs, other training, other things to help build my career to get me to where I got to. And I've been an embracer of it. Even at this point, I still got people I talk to that can help me answer those questions. So I challenge our industry out here. There's so many good resources out there, and there's some really talented, sharp people. Talk to them, engage. Our friendly competitors we have out there in this coaching, teaching, training space, all of us just want to make and get, I guess, just a lot of pride or fulfillment of making a difference for you, making a difference that you can do and be more successful for your family, for your for your team. And I tell people that when you sit there and go, well, my shop's got 5 people or 8 people, I says, no, think about them and their family. You've got 20, 30 mouths that you're really responsible for. That's a big burden. That's a big responsibility financially. We want everybody to get the best and the most out of it. So training, taking advantage of today's class, other resources and things that are out there, they're huge. It's huge. And just as you look at many top business people, professionals, athletes, whatever, all have multiple people in their lives helping them be the best they can be. I just say, people, why wouldn't you take advantage of some of these things
Yeah.
and make that investment?
Yeah, the professional sports is such a great example for it. And I think a lot of people, they wait until it burns them, or until they get to that point. And it recognize that carving out the time for personal development and training plan, it can be challenging. Who knows? Maybe that's an upcoming topic that we can collaborate on, like why we ignore this and what can happen, and maybe what's happening internally for us, why we might want to avoid it. Because sometimes it could be like, I'm not comfortable because I don't know this, and I'd rather just set that aside now and hope it doesn't burn me. But if we can get ahead of that and continue to build, I think most folks would agree that that's going to put you in a better spot. People always have things to learn. Things are changing so fast in this industry. And look it up if you choose, in terms of the way our brains work. You're losing information, you're forgetting it over time. So if things are moving forward and we're losing stuff, you gotta stay on top of it. So if you think you've got it all figured out, perhaps today, but I would argue it's in your interest to stay ahead of it and plan for the future.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We get those phone calls where someone says, we're desperate.
Yeah.
My business is struggling. I can't make payroll this week coming up. I can't pay my parts people. I can't, and you got to help me. You got to save me. And it's unfortunate that, I just wish you would have called, 3 months earlier, 6 months earlier. There's so much we could have done, but you're to the point that you're so close to the end that it's hard to turn it around. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, it's no different than we always talk. I mean, just being focused. Great industry events are out there, great opportunities, things we're trying to do, things you're trying to do, how we're trying to do it together to move that needle. Because it hurts me to hear that person who says they're in that tough of a spot. And we want to help, but we know that they're in such a bad spot. It's just hard to get them to pull out and to turn it around in that short of a window. It doesn't take a long window, but man, if we could have just had that extra 60, 90 days, we could have saved it. We could have made a difference. So yeah, I think we beat up the importance of training and continue the development of content and education to keep you top of mind and keep it fresh. And I know we're getting down to those last minutes. Hour went by quick. I told you it would.
Yeah, absolutely.
I said, we'll get going and we'll start talking about all these things. But there's just so many good opportunities. You just don't want to see anybody miss out. Mm-hmm. And we want to be able to deliver. And sometimes our industry doesn't have the best reputation with the consumers. So this is an opportunity to sit here and reinforce it. Mm-hmm. I don't think, and we tell this to our clients, we tell it to everybody, when people come in, and you got customers coming in, let them know that your techs are certified in this. Put that certificate up that your service advisor went through this training, this program. These are experts. This is a person who you can trust to consult with you to give you the best and the most you need out of your car, to give you that longevity. I mean, as many statistics, next to your house, it's the second largest purchase, unless you buy a big boat. It's the second largest purchase that you make. Without a car, you don't go to work unless you work from home. But I mean, it's so important. At least you got a house, it's still there, but your car does so many more things for you that helps you keep your house. Because if you can't go to work, you're not going to get paid. And if you don't get paid, you're going to lose your house. So your car is a valuable, valuable asset. You got to take care of it. And we, as an industry, can do even better by being smarter, better with our understanding the training and other things that go on. I know I'm looking at my watch as we get down to the end. So what are some of your final words of wisdom?
Well, building one thing you just said right there, another tool that we have enjoyed rolling out, for some shops that have done it, is building up what you said with certificates and so forth. With some of the gamification I referenced earlier, people can highlight that stuff. Think of taking an Uber and looking at their star rating. We've got ways where we're able to represent, here's the topics that, this technician, this service provider is graduated. That information can be made available, for those customers waiting in that shop. It might just be a little thing that indicates, hey, these folks are continuing to grow. They're recognizing those things. But I would say from a closing thought perspective, we're, again, thrilled to be working, with you and your team on taking this to another level. Again, really focusing on the broader shop as a whole, trying to improve knowledge, engage these folks, get them to be asking other questions as well. So we think there's a lot of opportunity ahead. And again, we look forward to collaborating with other groups and to try and grow this industry.
So, well, this was very valuable, and I know we have, as the institute here as a whole, and even outside as we've been to events. I talk about today's class, and people go, "Man, I need my tech to need this and that." Talk today's class, and I know we've recommended, and I know those clients that I've talked to who have engaged into your services, I've had not one complaint. Everybody's been happy. It's made a difference. They're getting a good return on that investment. I know it's not overly expensive, but it's something that moves the needle. And it truly is a measurable, reportable. We say all the time, what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. And anytime you can get those measurements and you get that data points, it gives us as leaders of a company an opportunity to manage it better, to have those
Right.
different and better conversations with staff. Because all we're trying to do is move it up the ladder a little bit, just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. The old thing of is, man, if I can just do 1% more every day, we work 20, 21 days a month on average. That's a 20% increase by the time you get to the end of the month. What would you do with a 20% better effort or better increase in everything you're doing? That's just by doing that little bit, 1% more every day.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we're happy and very ecstatic to be able to work together on the way we are, to help feed some of the content, what you fed back to us, that's making a difference with our coaching clients and how we engage. So it's exciting. And I tell people who might be listening or listen to this, I know many listen after the fact, reach out, get in touch with today's class. It costs nothing to sit on one of your presentations as you put the group together. Mm-hmm. And you run through the features and benefits and how you do the different things you do. Take the time. All it is just, because what does it take, 15, 20 minutes as you go through? It's not real long. Yep. When you do your demos and just show what's available. But the knowledge gain and the opportunity is worth your time. It's really worth your time. And obviously, we're always here at the Institute. Please reach out to us, our staff. We're here to help in another way. Training is so much, it's just so much out there that needs to continue to be worked on. Things that we want to continue to raise that bar of not only the content we have, the quality of it, and how we deliver it out there so that people engage, learn, and we become better. And, we say it all the time, better life, better business, better industry. And if we can do all this together, we're going to have that to where you're going to have a great running shop. So it's going to make your life better. It's going to make your business better, which only makes the industry better. So I see we are up to that last couple minutes. I thank everybody. Reach out, stay in touch. Let's just keep talking, and we're going to continue to take deeper dives. As David said, we got more topics to cover here in the near future when it comes around training and obviously how it's consumed, and the benefits of keeping it on a daily and keeping it fresh. So, last words?
Thank you very much for having me. So glad
Thank
to be
you,
here.
sir.
Appreciate it.
It was an honor. We'll be talking more. Thanks, everybody that jumped in on the live. And for those later, let's talk more. We got a lot to do. Thank you.